Fragments of silicon. Sometimes they happen in the morning, too.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon, the Daylight Interviews. Right, I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves.
Of course. So I am Hosein Akbari, business relations and programmer of Black Cube Games.
And I'm Majid Rahmani. I'm game designer and level designer on Black Cube Games.
Okay. Right, and we are here to talk about the Tale of Bistoon.
Yes.
But before we get into the game proper, we'd like to get to know the people behind the studio, the games, and all that jazz. And we begin that journey by asking this particular question. What got you both interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Yeah, Majid, can you go first?
Yeah, okay. Actually, it's a familiar story for most of us, our gamers playing games, dreaming of designing games that we love. So I start my career in game industry as game critic back in, I guess it was 2008. And when I was doing reviews for games, I got familiar with the lens of, seeing games from a different point of view. So I was immersed by how the techniques and the technical aspects behind everything looks so great and feels so good. Was something that suddenly becomes so interesting for me. And after that, I attend a game design college and studied game design there. And I guess after graduation, it was then that I joined Black Cube Games as an indie game studio and started, practicing and doing some stuff. And that was, the very basic brief of the journey that I've took so far.
Yeah, so similar for me. I was a gamer as a kid, and me and my brother grew up as gamers, playing games together all the time. And then when I was at school, my brother started working as a game developer. And then when I got into university, I studied computer science, and I learned how to do programming and stuff. I also wanted to get into the game industry as a programmer. So I entered the Black Cube Games team as an intern at that time when I was like first year of university. And then I tried a bit of game development. And then in that first year, I did also do quite a lot of other stuff like network programming, working as web development, stuff like this. But then nothing was as good as game development for me, so I came back. Ever since, I have worked on multiple projects with different teams, but the Black Cube Games team was always our own. So here we are, I'm back to Black Cube Games and making games here.
Good, good. It's good that you both have been able to pursue your passions and, make it into a career. And I guess my next question is actually about Black Cube Games itself. how big of a developer is this? How long has it been around? Is the Tale of Bithzoon its first project?
Yeah, so the team itself was formed, I think, about 11 years ago, starting as an art outsource company. But then, as the business grew, the team added programmers and designers and everything, so it became a full development studio after a few years. And initially, as I said, it was an art outsource studio, and then when it became a game development studio, we did work for hire. But then a few years back, we chose to start our own game as an indie studio. We wanted to be able to make the games that we like to make, you know. So we chose to start The Tale of Bisoon as our first indie title as a team, and we're happy that we were able to release it about 2 months ago.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, and once again, so like, how big is the team that made this game?
We are currently 10 people.
10 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair-sized indie team.
Yeah.
We've encountered bigger. We've encountered smaller. Anyway, and how long ago did the Tale of Bithzoon enter production? Like, how long did you guys work on the game?
I guess it was almost 5 years ago, that we started, the initial brainstorming sessions and, looking for something to build. And we did some, trials and errors, of course. Our first product was a vertical slice after 8 months of, after 8 months of production since we started the project. And after many feedbacks that we gathered from the vertical slice, we changed everything, and we did another vertical slice for, I guess it was for Gamescom back in 2018, I guess. And after that, there was still, changes and, adjusting the design and modifying our vision, especially in terms of marketing. So the production was almost paused for around 18 or 17 months. We were looking for, publishers and funding for the project during this time. And after that, it was around maybe 2 years that we continued the development of the Tale of Beastone in a full cycle production until reaching the release date.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty typical road of development, especially indie development.
Indeed.
And let's see. Right, I suppose we should get into the game itself a bit here. Right, for the uninitiated, what is the Tale of Bithzoon? Because apparently this is it's listed here as a story-driven action-adventure game inspired by the 12th century tragic poem Karsau and Shirin.
Yeah, that's right. It's actually a famous folkloric story in Persia, and it was one of our initial ideas to have a game based on mythology and being diverse in terms of culture and the world that it introduced. So it was one of our natural choices back when we did brainstorming for the ideas. So at first we wanted to be more like an action RPG title. We even had some systems like DPS and critical damage, and this stuff that adding basic light RPG elements to the gameplay. But after a few feedbacks and several, play tests, we reached the vision that to emphasize and focus on the story and try to narrate a story that revolves around, famous love story about a stone carver that falls in love with the princess, and etc. etc. If you play the game, you know the other rules of the story. So when we reach this vision, we remove some of the aspects of gameplay, and uh, we we make it simple in terms of combat and gameplay, just as a way to break the pace through the narration moments. So it was the vision that we reached almost 2 years ago, and we follow it since then.
Okay. Right. So, fair amount of avenues to start with. I suppose from the narrative perspective, is this the first video game adaptation of Karsao and Shirin?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have many games based on the Persian culture and Persian mythology. We've all heard of Prince of Persia, and maybe like one or two other games, but there isn't much that we could name right now. So we thought that choosing this this period of time and this mythology would bring some new stories, and so that's why we chose like an old Persian story, and we are quite sure that based on Hosein and Shiri, there aren't any games now.
Like, I'm pretty certain you're right. And yeah, certainly we do get a lot of, let's say, certain cultures adapted to various other media, and that perhaps has to do with where video game development has been traditionally located. So it's definitely a good thing to see. Obviously this is something that's very culturally rich in its own right, but is fairly unknown to the broader public compared to, let's say, Romeo and Juliet or Romance of the Three Kingdoms, etc., etc.
Exactly, yeah. So we've heard of, as you said, different romance stories of maybe Western cultures or even from Japan or other countries. But from like the Middle East, there hasn't been much media which has like been presented to all of the world. And we understood that with our background, as we all come from a Persian background, if we want to be represented better, we should start doing this ourselves instead of waiting for the rest of the world to come and explore the culture.
True, and it's also, you probably have a better handle on your own representation. I believe you brought up Prince of Persia, and I know Prince of Persia is fairly controversial, especially among Iranian culture and all that, because the simple fact of the matter is Prince of Persia isn't something that was created in Persia or by Persians or anything like that. It was created by white people.
Yeah.
And that's always been a bone of contention, as I understand it.
Exactly. That's exactly the case.
So, anyway, now, if somebody has read the actual poem of Karsao and Shirin, will they know the story here, or have you made your own embellishments or additions, subtractions, or whatever to the story to make it fit in a video game space, other than like have gameplay?
Yeah, we have adapted the story a lot. So the basic concept of the story is the same. So like the people in the story, the main plot of the story, what happens at the end, everything is based on the main poem. But we've added a lot of characters, we've added some points so that we could have some gameplay elements like combat and stuff like this. So there's a lot added, there's a lot of story added, there's a lot of background, there's a lot of world building made by us to make it more interesting and make it playable as a game.
Okay. And focusing in on the gameplay aspect, you said you reduced some gameplay systems in order to make sure that the narrative shone through more. And I suppose my question in that direction is, why was there any desire to scale it back further, like the narrative adventure, quote unquote, walking simulator?
Oh, sorry. I
We're
thought
not muted. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying here, why settle on an action adventure game?
Okay. If I want to wrap my mind, in a correct hierarchy, basically the action adventure was a genre that we have prior experience before, based on the projects that we worked for hire and some failed projects. We have did some mechanics and gameplay aspects regarding the combat and action. So it was something that we have more experience on it, and we want to lower the risk of production. And also, it's a popular genre that isometric action is something that many people like. I remember even when we started the project, it was Bastion, Diablo, titles like these counter discussions. But as we progress and we go through the production, we understood that the scale of the project and the scope of the features that these games providing are not something that we as a small indie team could handle. So we choose some basic and very few mechanics at first, but after we move forward, we understood based on the feedbacks that the most important aspect of the gameplay actually was narration, and the feel of the world that catches the audience, and remembers and what they remember from the game. So we focus everything on this strong point of the potential of the game, potential of the features of the game. So we try to decrease everything unrelated to it as much as possible to let it shine and emphasize our focus on the narration and storytelling, because we thought that it's the strongest point that we have in our production team.
And do you think you succeeded in that goal?
As far as I know, it was interesting for us to know that the story and the mood of the board that the television tries to deliver has been captured by more people than we expected. We were worried that maybe because the whole story and narration is based on a Persian folklore story. Many people are not ever with that, so we were worried that maybe most people will not understand the mood and concepts that we try to speak in the game. But based on the feedbacks that players and critics have delivered to us, it seems that the story has been delivered more than we expected.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. Always good to hear when receptions are either high or higher than expected. And let's see. So, what can you actually do combat-wise? What are your weapons, and what kind of creatures are you fighting against? Because I'm wondering if the monsters you're fighting here are they from the poem, or are they from the broader Persian mythos?
No, they're not from the poem, but they're of course from Persian, mythologies. For example, enemies like thieves or paris are names that are repeated in Persian mythology and legends a lot. So, and in other media, they even have some depictions as well. So, these two types of enemies were basic creatures that we want to use as enemies. And there's another variation of thief as well that serve as some kind of mini-boss in the gameplay. But creatures besides, we have some enemy like enemies as well. For example, well guard or royal soldiers are enemies that write from the history, based on the history of the tale. It was happening in the Sassanid era in Persian Empire. So the soldiers, are some kind of enemies that are, related to the king that, plays a role in the story as well. And well guards are representative of the people that that is being told in the poem, that when Farhad carves the stone with empty-handed, they mock him, and manipulate him, and trying to make jokes of him. So they are some kind of representation of those people based on the poem. But basically, almost all the enemies are based on Persian mythologies.
And I'm assuming all seeds might have his, if you will, roots in the Persian mythology as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And also, as you mentioned, if you wanted to emphasize only on Persian mythologies, there was this concern that maybe Western audience won't understand the concepts. So, but as you may know, all the mythologies and legends of the world have some cliches and similar aspects in each other. For example, the all seeds, the tree itself, has some common legends in Western culture as well. Something like the tree of life. In Persian mythology, the all seeds is a tree that contains all the seeds of the trees in the world. So it's something like that. There is a familiar concept that can be understood by worldwide.
Right. And that actually brings up a question I want to ask here, and that is, you mentioned introducing these, all of this culture, if you will, to Western audiences, and I'm wondering, what's the balancing act like, in order to make sure that people unfamiliar with all of the iconography and such, they get familiarized, but without, for lack of a better term, beating them over the head with everything.
Yeah, so as you know, games have different aspects. So one main aspect of the game is the gameplay, which we chose to use something familiar for the audience, so that when the player is playing the game, learning the general concept of how to play the game isn't very hard. It's quite simple. It's quite familiar. If you have played similar games, it's definitely going to be easy to pick up. But then the story has some diversity in it, so that's the part which we could explore more. We could show stuff that is unfamiliar for the player. So we generally we had this thought that we could show about 30 to 40% unfamiliarity, but stick to 60% of the aspects of the game has to be familiar, so that the player could play along with it and learn it and have fun with it, really.
Okay. And in terms of the gameplay, can you do any sort of upgrading? Do you get other weapons? Are there collectibles to find?
Yes,
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, go on, Magic.
Okay, sorry, I continue. Yeah, there are several collectibles in the game. The reward for collecting for each of them is a backstory, whether about the Farhad himself, or the world of the game. And also we have upgrade, but not in terms of classic upgrade that is some kind of player have more agency on it. The upgrades are happening throughout the story. So after almost each level has a sequence that whether you find a new weapon or you upgrade your current weapon, to add extra abilities, extending your attack chains and adding active ability that will help you during your combat and fight. But there's no skill point or level skill tree with the familiar term.
Right. And how long will it take your average gamer to complete the Tale of Bitsune?
That would be maybe between 2.5 to 4 hours, based on how well they play the combat or how much they want to explore and find the collectibles and stuff. But yeah, somewhere between 2.5 to 4 hours.
Okay, so it's a fairly short game.
Yeah.
And are there any boss encounters?
There are bosses, yes. Which I can't really spoil here, but yes,
Right.
you do have boss encounters in the game.
Okay. And let me see here. So this game was made in Unity. Did you find using that engine reliable?
Yeah, sure. So we've been working with Unity for the projects we worked before, for work for hire and stuff. So we were quite good with Unity. That's why we chose it, and it's been a good experience for us, both programming wise and art wise. It's been good. Yeah.
Okay.
For this scale of project, we thought it would be suitable, and it was.
Okay. I mean, that's actually refreshing to hear. Not everyone has the highest of praises to sing about Unity for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Anyway, and in regards to the music, is the music traditional Persian music, or is it something a bit more contemporary? Who composed it, and things of that nature?
Yeah, so the music is composed by a friend, Hamid Reza Ansari, and he's amazing. He's done lots of good games. And so he's familiar with traditional Persian music and contemporary music. So he's done sort of a mix for this game. And so if you play the game, you will get some traditional vibes, and you also will get some like energy of like the contemporary music. So he's done like a mix, and we're really glad with the final outcome of the music. It fits really well onto the story.
I would agree, from what I've played. And let me see. So, what platforms is the game currently available on?
The game's available on PC, which would mean Steam, Epic Games, GOG, and other stores, and also on Xbox.
Okay. And are
Yeah.
you looking into bringing the game to the Nintendo Switch or the PlayStation ecosystem?
Well, that would be amazing for us because the Nintendo Switch is quite a suitable platform for this type of game. And that's something we have to decide about in the future, really. We have a publisher for this game, and this is a decision our publisher has to make. So if they do choose to do so, we will have it on the platforms, yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully.
And I suppose another question is, was there a particular reason you targeted the Xbox systems?
Oh yeah, the great thing about the Taylor of Soon is we got into the diversity program of ID at Xbox. And so ID at Xbox is, if you know, it's the program that Xbox is helping indie developers. And so they liked the game, and they supported us to make it possible on Xbox platforms. Yeah, so that was an amazing opportunity to work with Xbox in the television.
Okay. And does that mean the game's on Game Pass?
No, it's not on Game Pass. No, not yet at least. Yeah, maybe in the future if that happens, we would be happy.
Right. And you said the game came out about 2 months ago.
Mhm.
How's it been faring sales wise?
The sales, I mean, haven't been bad. We were expecting it to be a little better, but as this type of game, because it's like a narrative heavy game, it's maybe we've targeted a niche audience. That's why maybe we haven't had like um, a very large audience and sales. So we were expecting some more, but it hasn't been bad. I mean,
I mean,
it's doing good, yeah.
yeah. I mean, that is definitely a situation, if nothing else.
Mhm.
Like, mainly because it seems to be okay. You're doing okay, but you're only doing okay.
Yeah.
Like, and as far as reach goes, these things can be a two-way street. Like, I mean, being based on Persian mythology and literature is certainly novel, but it's also something that might not be picked up for precisely that reason.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you do something like something that players already know, a story that they know, they might just buy the game based on their searches, like they're searching for a specific story and they see it and they buy it. But for this type of game, which you're going for a new story, a new culture, you won't have players looking for this story. So in terms of feedback and reviews and critics and stuff, it's been better than we expected. But in terms of sales, I think we can do better. Like hopefully in the near future, we can get some more visibility. and do better, really.
Indeed, because it would be a shame to see such an initiative not be able to press forward.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I suppose on that note, my final question here would be, do you have any ideas for what you're going to be doing next?
We are still exploring. We definitely want to be able to explore more Persian mythology, but we are not like 100% sure that we can at the moment. So we're still exploring. Yeah.
Once again, hopefully you will be able to tap into that vein once again. And now I'll turn it over to my colleagues to see if they have any questions of their own to ask.
I think I'm good. The game looks interesting. I wish I had been able to play it, but alas, windowed mode shenanigans.
Yep.
I am also good.
All right. So yeah, I want to thank both of you for taking time out of your schedules and being with us here today to talk about the Tale of Bitsune. I certainly found it enlightening.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. No problem. And
that was a pleasure.
Indeed. Hopefully we can have you back on the program for when you are deep in development to your next project, whatever it may be. But in the meantime, the game is The Tale of Bitsune. It is currently available on pretty much every PC storefront you can think of, and also the Xbox Series X. Is it Xbox One compatible?
Yeah. Xbox One and Xbox Series platforms.
Okay. And it currently retails for, hang on, I had the price right. $17.99 for the regular edition. And the collector's edition is going for $18.37. If you wish to purchase the DLC or the soundtrack independently, that will run you $4.98. And be sure to pick it up today. Right, so that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Be sure to tune in next time for our Sunday reviews. And until then, I shall wish you good gaming.